everybody. You're here with Luminol on the Wall. I'm Becky, and this podcast is coming out just post Mother's Day, so I hope everyone had a really great time. I unfortunately did not get to see my mother because she was sick, but I did see her the day before, and then because she was sick, I got banned from seeing Bevy's baby, which is understandable because I do not want to get that little guy sick, but it made me sad. So, to all the people in my life and that are listening to this podcast, if you're a mother, including a dog mom or a cat mom, any type of mom, happy Mother's Day. All right, so I just heard some breaking news right before I was about to podcast, and it is regarding the Menendez brothers. They just got their sentence reduced from life without parole to 50 years to life. This is big news, and the reason why is because currently they are now eligible for parole, which means they could get out of prison in the very near future. For those who don't know about the Menendez brothers, here's a very quick recap. They killed their parents. They claimed all sorts of abuse. Now, the controversy about this case was actually, were they abused like they said? And was their original life sentence fair? Now, that is just kind of the tip of the iceberg. And if you want to know more, there are tons of documentaries out there about it, tons of podcasts, specifically Netflix has one at least. So go check it out, make up your own mind. Do you think they were rightfully given that life sentence or not? So with that, let's get into it. Today's case is about a woman named Ashley Nicole Smylie. She was born on April 11th, 1983 in Stuart, Florida. She was just a tiny little thing standing at 5'1". She had long blonde hair and beautiful blue eyes. Now, Ashley loved traveling, but she always had a really soft spot for the sunny beaches of Florida. In 2005, Ashley married a man named Kevin Gregg. After their nuptials, the couple moved to Brandon, Mississippi. And then 4 years later, on April 23rd, 2009, they had their very first daughter. Her name was Carly Gregg. Then just a couple years later, they had another daughter named Natalie. Now, Ashley loved being a mother. She was incredibly devoted to her children. They meant the world to her. Now, unfortunately, the family was hit with one of the biggest losses that could possibly happen. Little Natalie passed away due to a genetic abnormality at a fairly young age. Now, regardless of Ashley's pain, she poured all her love and energy into Carly, ensuring that she felt safe, loved, and supported. Now, by the time Carly was 4, her mother decided to leave her father. You see, Kevin suffered from addiction and was quite violent towards Ashley. Even after she left him, she was really fearful that he would do something to her. And this is when Ashley decided to get a gun for protection. And she often left it loaded in her bedroom side table so she could defend herself if Kevin tried anything. Fortunately, he never did. But he did make life really difficult in regards to the custody of Carly. Eventually, they came to an agreement. Carly would see her dad every couple weeks. But the sad thing was that Kevin didn't seem to put much effort into his visits with Carly. And on top of that, he just didn't take good care of her while she was in his custody. You know, like I said, he was struggling with addiction and, he had his own shit going on. And because of this, as Carly got older, their relationship deteriorated. And she didn't really care to see her father that much. Now, in 2019, Ashley and Carly's lives completely changed. And that was because Ashley married a man named Heath Smylie. He was an absolutely awesome guy. He was 39 years old. He was a physical therapy assistant, had his life together, and Heath and Ashley had a really strong and supportive relationship. Heath had become especially close to Carly. He treated her like his own daughter, even though he didn't have any children. Carly and Heath enjoyed spending time together, playing video games, hanging out, and just having a lot of fun. So we're jumping forward to 2024. By that time, Carly was 14 and was in grade 10 at Northwest Rankin High School. And it just so happened that her mom, Ashley, worked there as a math teacher. Now, Ashley was super mathematically gifted, and she was a dedicated teacher. One of those teachers that you can just tell they love their jobs because their students love them. Now, Carly took after her mom a bit, and she was a really gifted, smart girl, just like her mom. She even ended up skipping the 4th grade, and she definitely excelled in school. So now that Carly is 14, her mom and Heath start noticing a lot of changes in her, just like many 14-year-old girls, We're moody, we're emotional, we're angry, we're uncomfortable. And to be quite honest, we are craving a little bit of independence, and we are there to fight our parents for that. But Heath and Ashley start noticing it's a little more than just the normal teenage mood swings and stuff like that, right? She is becoming a bit more defiant. She's breaking rules at school and not listening as much. For example, one night Carly snuck out of the house to meet up with her boyfriend after curfew. Now, that wasn't allowed, but she did it. She had also brought a Swiss Army knife to school and lied about her reasoning for bringing it. She also took a photo of her teacher's computer screen with all the test answers and shared it with all her classmates so that they could all, ace this test, which is very nice of her to be looking out for her fellow classmates, but it was wrong nonetheless. At one point, she was also dared to drink a bottle of hand sanitizer, and she did it. So you can see how Ashley would be a little concerned with her daughter's current behavior. And she had consequences to go along with everything. Number one, she was sent to alternative school for a whole semester, so she was taken away from her friends and, what most teenagers cared about. On top of that, Ashley put restrictions on Carly's phone privileges. She wasn't allowed to use her phone at night in her bedroom, and she was restricted on using social media. And Ashley specifically wanted that because she had noticed her daughter's mental health declining a little bit, and she felt that too much social media would harm her further. Around this time, Carly's biological father, Kevin, had actually given her a present. Now, when I was doing my research, I found one that said it was a burner phone and the other said it was an iPad. But either way, it gave Carly more access to social media and all the things that Ashley was trying to prevent. Then on top of that, Ashley found out that her daughter, Carly, who's only 14, had gotten a nipple piercing. And she was a little mortified, and I'm sure for many reasons. Probably the biggest one being is, who would have given a 14-year-old a nipple piercing? And if no one else did it, did she do it herself? Because that is also concerning. Anyways, this may be TMI, but I once too had my nipple pierced. I did it on a bit of a dare, so dumb me, I was 18. Anyways, worst decision I ever made. But when I went, they made me sign all the paperwork and show my ID. So if someone did do that, shame on them. Anyways, this was kind of the final straw for Ashley, and she got her daughter back in therapy. She really felt that something was off and she needed to talk to someone. And good thing she followed her intuition and got her in there, because it was later revealed that Carly had been cutting herself, particularly on her thighs, and taking sleeping pills without her parents' knowledge. Because of these factors and the extra tension at home, Carly's therapist suggested putting her on Prozac. Now, Ashley was strongly against it. And not just because it was meds, but because Ashley had her own struggles with depression when she was younger, and she had been prescribed Prozac herself and had experienced suicidal thoughts on that medication. So instead, Ashley agreed to a different medication for Carly to help her with anxiety and depression. Now, because of the whole sleeping pill admission, Ashley was a little worried about her daughter in regards to being in control of her own pills. So Ashley kept them and would hand them out every day. So after that, things seemed to be going in an upward trajectory. Carly was seeing a therapist once a week, and she was on her meds. She was doing well in school. And then March 19th, 2024 happened. And it started out like any normal day. Ashley and Carly left for school together before Heath, just like normal, and everything seemed routine. That was until later that afternoon, two of Carly's friends approached Ashley, expressing concern about Carly. They told her that Carly had started smoking weed regularly and used vape pens all the time, even before school. They were really worried that she was spiraling down a dangerous path, and they thought Ashley needed to know, which I think is just so brave, because as a teenager to kind of rat on your friend, that's a big thing, you know? Some kids will take those secrets to the grave. They were obviously really good friends and were just looking out for Carly's best interest. So obviously, Ashley was pretty surprised with this information. So after school, Ashley and Carly meet up just like normal to go home. Security footage from their garage shows Ashley and Carly pull up in the SUV at 3:55 p.m. And I'm unsure if Ashley has confronted Carly about the vape pens yet. But what I do know is when they get out of the SUV, it seems very calm, no one seems angry, and then they go inside the house. They enter the laundry room that leads to the kitchen where there is another camera. Now, at first, they both put down their bags, and Ashley then asked Carly to take the 2 golden retrievers outside. At this time, Ashley had been texting Heath about picking something up from the grocery store. Then later at 4:14 p.m., Heath responded to a text from Ashley asking him, "When will you be home, honey?" And he said he'd be at work for a little while longer. And she sent a thumbs up back to him. Now, around 5 p.m., Heath returned home. He pulled into the driveway in his dark blue truck, and he parked just off to the side of Ashley's SUV, all in camera shot. He then walked towards the door that led to the laundry room. He kicked off his shoes and tried to open the door leading to the kitchen, but only managed to get it open about 3 or 4 inches, and that's when he saw a muzzle flash and heard a gunshot. He saw his stepdaughter Carly standing there, pointing the gun at him. Instinctively, he reached for the gun, and it went off 2 more times. Now, Heath managed to wrestle the gun away from Carly, and in the struggle, Carly got knocked flat on her ass. She immediately got up with a crazy look on her face, and she ran out the door. Now, Heath was fairly confused as to why his stepdaughter was shooting at him, and his initial reaction was that there was an intruder in the house and Carly was protecting herself and she must have shot him out of fear, because what other reason would she have done that? Now, just a little after 5 p.m., Heath made a call to emergency services. He was calling from his home, 214 Ashton Way. He was so frantic that the dispatcher thought it was a distressed woman screaming and trying to explain what had happened. When they listened closer, they realized it was Heath Smylie on the line. He explained that he had been shot by his stepdaughter, Carly Gregg. He told them after he was shot, Carly ran away and he locked all the doors. Heath then went through the house to clear it of intruders, and that's when he found his wife, Ashley, dead in Carly's bedroom. Heath gave a description of Carly and what she was wearing at the time. Now, the police didn't take very long to arrive. It only took them 7 minutes. And when they approached the house, they started banging on the door, and they could hear someone inside screaming. Finally, Heath opens the door. As he comes out, he says, "My wife is shot, she's inside," and then he collapsed to the ground. He wasn't wearing a shirt, he had on navy pants and Crocs, and he was bleeding from the neck. Now, officers rush in, and one of them went straight to the back bedrooms. In Carly's room, the officer found Ashley lying on the floor with a red towel over her face. Her arms had been positioned over her stomach/chest area. When the deputy removed the towel, it was clear that Ashley was dead. There was also no pulse. She had multiple bullet holes in her face, and there was a large pool of blood underneath her head. The deputy put the towel back on her face, and as he turned around to leave, he noticed a bunch of blood splatter on the TV. When he kind of examined the room, it didn't look like there had been much of a struggle. So was this a surprise attack? Now, outside, Heath told the officer that Carly had shot him, and then she ran away. At the time of the altercation, Heath didn't realize he had been shot, probably, because of adrenaline. But based on Heath's account and description of his stepdaughter, the deputy immediately radioed that The 14-year-old girl, Carly Gregg, was the primary suspect. She was wearing a gray Nirvana shirt with jeans. And be on the lookout for her. When officers asked Heath whose gun it was, he told officers that it was Ashley's. He explained she had it hidden between the mattress and the bed frame. It was hidden in the back of a cubby that was built for storage. And as we know, Ashley had been terrified of her ex-husband and kept it there in case he showed up. In their house, officers also found an unloaded camo shotgun in the closet, a semi-automatic rifle, and another gun locked in a safe. Why they weren't all in a safe, really, I do not know. It just seems so dangerous to have any of that laying around a house. Now, the reason why they had so many guns was because Heath and Ashley often would go practice shooting together, and though Carly had never shown interest in going to the range with them, she was aware of the firearms in the house. He continued to explain to officers that once Carly had ran off, he locked the door and checked the revolver that he had wrestled away from Carly. It still had one bullet in the chamber. So he knew that Carly had fired it 3 times at him, so that meant that there were 3 shots unaccounted for. He also noticed Ashley's phone was on the counter along with another phone that belonged to Carly. Heath was a little bit confused as to why there were 3 additional bullets missing, so he decided to search the house. So he checked his and Ashley's bedroom, their closet, bathroom, the spare room, and then he eventually made his way to Carly's room. And that's where he said he found Ashley lying there, just like how the deputies found her, with a towel over her face and her arms crossed over her chest. He checked her pulse, but there was nothing, and that's when he called 911. After this conversation, Heath was then taken to the ER. During this time, officers had been out looking for Carly, and one officer turned onto Farmington Street, and he noticed his police dog in the back staring intently out the window, clearly spotting something. The officer followed the dog's gaze and saw a girl standing there completely soaked, and she matched the description of Carly. He immediately jumped out of the car, ran over to her, and as he approached, he asked, "Were you just involved in a shooting?" The girl replied, yes, and I'm sorry." Now, because of her shirt specifically, they pretty much knew it was Carly standing there, and she ended up asking if her stepdad was okay, but they couldn't really give her that answer. And she's like, "Oh, okay." She seemed really innocent, quiet, mild-mannered, stuff like that. She definitely didn't seem like someone who had just shot someone. She seemed very calm and very aware of the situation. Like, she didn't seem confused or disorientated. She actually just seems like someone who was aware of the situation and knew what was going on. And she definitely didn't struggle when the officers put her in handcuffs. And they tested her hands for gunshot residue and then took her to the police station. Now, the good news from this incident is that Heath ended up being okay. He was released from the hospital a short while later. His wound ended up not being critical, and by a stroke of luck, the bullet happened to miss any vital organs, arteries, anything like that. And it was a clean shot that went right through his trap muscle. So his wound was cleaned up, bandaged, and Heath was sent home. Now, it took a little time at the hospital, so by the time he was released, he was actually able to go home. By then, the police had cleared out, having gathered all the evidence they needed. When Heath got home, he noticed that the security camera from the kitchen was gone, so he assumed that the police had taken it. However, when he went into the garage, he noticed that the security camera in the corner was still there. Feeling uneasy with this whole situation, he decided to go through the video footage from the garage. When he watched the footage, he heard his own encounter with Carly. He heard the gunshot followed by Carly screaming and Heath calling out, "What's the matter, Carly?" More screaming and more shooting. Now, Heath realized how important this footage could be, so he called the police to come and retrieve it. However, before they got there, Heath decided that it would be a good idea to upload it to his new computer. When he did, he accidentally hit cut and paste instead of copy and paste. So, by accident, he had cropped the video. When the police arrived and Heath explained his mistake, the police initially thought he might have tampered with the evidence for a reason. But they quickly realized that this was just a mistake. So they warned him if he found more evidence to not touch anything. They explained that any evidence tampering is technically an offense, not to mention could void the validity of it if it was needed in court. Over the next couple days, lots of Heath's friends and family members dropped off food, beverages, meal preps, stuff that he didn't have to worry about in this time of grief. And he decided that he would go through the fridge and just reorganize, clean some old stuff out. And when he did, he actually found the security camera from the kitchen. It was hidden way in the back of the fridge behind some water bottles and some other stuff. And based on his last experience with the last camera, he didn't touch anything and immediately called the police, and they came to collect it. Now, when the police review the footage from this security camera, they were absolutely shocked. So initially, they saw Carly and Ashley come inside after school. They had put their bags down. Ashley had asked Carly to take the dogs out, and Carly did. Now, from the angle that the camera is at, when you leave the kitchen, Carly's room is towards the right, and Ashley and Heath's is off to the left. So when Carly goes outside, Ashley leaves the kitchen and heads towards Carly's room. Carly must have noticed it because she almost immediately comes back inside for a second, and she starts acting pretty nervous. She's playing with her bangs, peeking around the corner to her room, but then she goes back outside with the dogs. A few moments later, Ashley comes out of the room and is on her phone. She's texting, then she walks to the back door, opens the blinds to look out the back door, and I'm assuming to make sure that Carly's still out there. Then Ashley returns to Carly's room, comes in and out of the kitchen a few times, and we eventually see her walk into the kitchen with what looks like a handful of marijuana vape pens. She peeks out the window again, then she goes to her own room for a minute, I think probably to put the vape pens in the room, and then she goes back to Carly's room. At that point, Carly comes in from outside with the dogs, and she slowly walks towards her room, like she's trying to be silent or sneak up on someone. Then we see Carly walk a little quicker past the kitchen and toward Ashley and Heath's room. And just a couple seconds later, again, we see Carly coming from her parents' room. She is slowly, creepily walking, and she peeks around the corner of the kitchen. And when she sees no one is there, she continues that creepy walk towards her bedroom with her hand behind her back, hiding something. It's clear as day. Then, out of nowhere, you hear a gunshot. Then there is a loud scream, another gunshot, then a thud, and a third gunshot. At this point, the dogs are seen on video, clearly stressed and kind of freaking out. They're very afraid. After that, Carly returns to the kitchen with her hand still behind her back. She sits on the edge of a stool, and you hear a heavy clank behind her. She grabs Ashley's phone and sends a text and starts cheerfully humming. Then she goes out of camera view again towards her room, where she could be heard speaking to the dogs, telling them to get back, go, get back, and then reappears with the dogs and puts them outside again. After seeing this video, Carly Gregg was charged with first-degree murder for the death of her mother, Ashley Smylie, and attempted murder of her stepfather, Heath Smylie. She was taken into custody and placed in a juvenile facility. Now, initially at Ashley's autopsy, they thought she had only been shot 2 times. But when they did a more in-depth examination, it was revealed that there were 3 shots. 2 of the shots were fired from close range at her face, from about 3-4 feet away. The 3rd shot struck her under the chin. There was burning around the bullet hole, which means it was even closer range. And they determined it was an execution-style shot. Ashley had 1 bullet lodged in her brain, and another was lodged in the back of her neck. Now, not long after Carly was arrested, a man came forward with his daughter. She was a classmate and friend of Carly's. Her name was Brooke. He believed his daughter had witnessed the murder. When detectives speak with Brooke, she tells them on March 19th, Carly called her on FaceTime a little after 4 and said, "Hey, I need you to come over. It's an emergency." So Brooke's father dropped her off at Carly's house around 5 p.m., just like several other times. When Brooke knocked on the door, Carly answered quickly and asked her, "Do dead bodies make you squeamish?" Brooke said, "I don't think so." And Carly let her in. She led Brooke to her bedroom where Carly showed her what she had done to her mother. Brooke told investigators at that time, Carly then said to her, "I shot her 3 times, and when my stepdad gets home, I've got 3 rounds waiting for him." Then she asked Brooke if she wanted to wait inside or outside, and Brooke decided to wait outside in the backyard. While Brooke was waiting, Heath showed up, and then she heard 3 gunshots and Carly screaming. She then saw Carly run out the back door into the backyard, and the 2 of them quickly ran around the side of the house, scaled the fence near Heath's truck, and ran down the driveway, and then took off in different directions. From there, Brooke ran to another friend's house, and Carly apparently went to find a sewer to hide in. Now, when the police reviewed the security footage, they confirmed that Brooke was telling the truth and had been right behind Carly, just seconds after the shots were fired. So as we know, Carly was charged with first-degree murder and attempted murder, and while waiting for her trial at the juvenile facility, Carly refused to meet with the mental health staff there. She said it would be useless. Over the next couple months, I think the reality of Carly's decisions had really started to settle in, and she was a mess. She virtually cried for the next couple months until August 29th, when she finally met with a psychiatrist supplied by the defense to evaluate her and her mental state. When Carly spoke with the psychiatrist, she told him that she had been unhappy from a really young age and that she had been hearing voices in her head for years. The male voice in her head had an elitist attitude, and he convinced her that she was better than everyone else. Carly also told the psychiatrist that when her mom would get angry with her, she would speak in short sentences and raise her voice. And this emotionally devastated her and was very hurtful. Now, I know that everyone's experiences are different, and how we all deal with traumatic events is also very different. But I was yelled at a lot. So were my siblings. Like, we love our parents. They're awesome. But, you know, when we did bad shit, we definitely got yelled at. And if we were mean to our mom, was she maybe a little short? Yeah. Am I currently short with people who piss me off? Usually. So I'm just saying. If she's traumatized by that, I think the whole world's a little screwed and very traumatized, because I don't know that there is a single parent in this world that has never raised their voice or yelled at their kids even once. Am I right? I am. Now, Carly also explained in the months leading up to the incident, she wasn't sleeping well because her mother's reactions to her behaviors were so disturbing. Now, from all accounts, it sounded like Ashley was fairly composed, rational, and overall fairly loving to her daughter. Now, Carly also told the psychiatrist the same thing that she had told her previous therapist, that when she would feel stressed or anxious, that she would cut herself. She also did tell him that the previous therapist had put her on 25 milligrams of Zoloft, and when that didn't seem to be working, they bumped it up to 50 milligrams. But then in March, Carly informed her therapist that the Zoloft was making her feel numb, and that's when they switched her to 5 milligrams of Lexapro. Carly also told the psychiatrist that she had completely blacked out during the murder and didn't remember anything from it, and she believed that it was from the drugs. Now, on top of evaluating Carly in person, the psychiatrist also reviewed some of Carly's journal entries and found a week before the murders she wrote, "I think I'm having a psychotic break." Apparently, her handwriting had changed drastically, and one page was full of scribbles and the words, "Help me, help me, help me." Now, this was all fairly concerning for him, and he started to think that maybe Carly could be potentially diagnosed with bipolar. But at the end of the day, more evaluations were needed. But in the meantime, the psychiatrist prescribed Carly a drug called Abilify, an antipsychotic drug, and this was to combat the voices in her head. Now, almost immediately after taking the drug, Carly reported she had not heard any voices and had been fine ever since. Now, what's really curious about that is based on information from the National Alliance of Mental Health, after starting Abilify, hallucinations, disorganized thinking, and delusions may improve in the first week or two. But these symptoms often just don't go away. But the longer you take Abilify, the better the symptoms get. And it may take anywhere from 2 to 3 months before you get the full benefit of Abilify. So it makes you think, did Carly actually hear voices? Or was this a manipulation tactic to help her case? Now, before Carly goes to trial, the prosecution actually offers a plea deal. And that is that she would receive 40 years if she pled guilty. And if she did, that means that she could potentially be out of jail by late 30s, early 40s, and still, have a lot of life ahead of her. But Carly refused the plea, and they went to trial in late 2024. When the defense puts the psychiatrist on the stand who did Carly's evaluation, he concluded that Carly had developed unhealthy coping mechanisms, including self-harm in response to the emotional turmoil caused by her mother's reactions and her father's behavior. He felt that the Lexapro that Carly was on leading up to the murder aided in the events of March 19th. He said she was so anxious about letting her mom down in regards to the weed that he believed Carly may have been experiencing a manic episode when she killed her mother. And at that moment, Carly was unable to distinguish right from wrong. He thought that she had previously shown manic behaviors such as getting her nipple pierced, a recent haircut, and he believed that Carly's mental health struggles had gone undiagnosed. Now, the defense rolled with that, and they told the jury that Carly had suffered from an unspecified schizophrenic disorder that had gone undiagnosed. And due to the medication she was on, she had blacked out, killed her mom. And based on the psychiatrist's findings, she didn't know right from wrong at the time of the murders, therefore she could not be held accountable for her actions. But the prosecution completely disagreed, and they had witnesses to prove it. So first they brought in the mental health nurse that did Carly's initial intake. She described the intake form and talked about how comprehensive and detailed it was. It was designed in order to cover all facets of mental health so that they could help their patients as best as possible. So in the section where they talk about hallucinations, voices, stuff like that, Carly answered no to all questions and never once mentioned to the intake nurse about any voices in her head. Now, when they brought in Carly's therapist, who had been seeing her weekly leading up to the crime, told the court that Carly had been pretty upset with her mother for accusing her of leading a double life. Carly had this public persona where she was really friendly and kind to her friends, and it didn't seem to match the darker side that her mother knew, at times anyways. Carly also seemed fairly indifferent to her mother's disciplinary actions, which might have contributed to the growing tension in their relationship. The therapist said Carly often expressed feelings that she was smarter and quicker than her peers. She easily became frustrated and angry with her friends and classmates, believing that others weren't as intelligent as she was, and that they didn't take school seriously. In one of Carly's sessions, she had lied to her therapist about being the grade 10 valedictorian at her school. And why she lied about that is a little unclear, but she did. At one point in therapy, Carly mentioned that she had been questioning her purpose in life. And when she was really stressed about that, she resorted to cutting herself on her thighs. Carly also told her therapist that she thought she had autism, though her doctors and therapists disagreed. they said she didn't show signs of being on the spectrum. In one of Carly's more recent therapy sessions, she said she was reading and had an obsession with the novel Crime and Punishment. For anyone who doesn't know, I mean, I've never read it, but what I read about it was it's a psychological novel about a man who justifies his murder of two people and descends into guilt and madness. Her therapist could confirm that in all the weeks that they were together, she never once mentioned any voices in her head. Now, giving Carly the benefit of the doubt, maybe she just truly didn't feel comfortable telling anyone. I don't actually know. But the prosecution believed that a calculated and very manipulative move to help with an insanity plea. The prosecution also argued that the psychiatrist who did the evaluation seemed to overlook some factors in other journal entries, where Carly had also revealed disturbing thoughts and fascination with dark characters. For example, she described her favorite character in Pinocchio as the bomb that killed people in a church and expressed a desire to make an atomic bomb. She also wrote, "It's okay to be evil and you don't need family." One journal where she was contemplating the meaning of life, she wrote, "I choose fire because it's powerful, beautiful, and deadly." And all these writings hinted at a troubling fascination with violence and death, and she, on top of the evaluation, the prosecution brought up the security camera video showing how calm and collected she was after shooting her mom. They brought up the calculated text to Heath to find out when he would be home. They also brought up the messages and phone calls she made to her friends, inviting them over to show off what she had done to her mom. They spoke of what her friend Brooke had told the police about having 3 more bullets for Heath. They also spoke about her overall demeanor on the videos when she was first found by the police, and they explained it didn't seem like someone who was in the midst of a psychotic break. And based on testimony from her therapist, nurse, never once before had she had bouts of amnesia or any blackouts, and so it's very convenient that her only blackout ever would have been while killing her mom. Now, despite the defense's efforts at trying to prove that Carly was not sound of mind at the time, the jury found Carly guilty of first-degree murder in the death of her mother. She was found guilty of the attempted murder of her stepfather and guilty of tampering with evidence. The jury deliberated for less than an hour before reaching their verdict. Carly broke down in tears when the verdict was announced. And in early September 2024, she was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murder and another life sentence for the attempted murder of her stepfather. She was also given an additional 10 years for evidence tampering. Now, Carly was charged as an adult due to the heinous nature of this crime. Now, just a couple weeks after being found guilty, Carly's defense attorney filed a motion for a new trial. They cited that there was new evidence and that there had been errors made during her original trial. Now, the new evidence apparently included a statement from Carly's biological father, Kevin, who had done an interview with the TV station saying that Carly had been diagnosed with auditory hallucinations as a child and had undergone equine therapy. However, Kevin refused to cooperate with Carly's defense team and refused to speak with the state's mental health professionals, although there is no proof that she was diagnosed with that. Now, the defense also pointed to a comment made by Carly's former therapist, and as we know, one of the prosecution's key witness for the state. She noted in her records that Carly expressed interest in reading Crime and Punishment, but the defense argued that this detail was irrelevant and only introduced to sway the jury. The request for a new trial was denied. Carly and her defense team continued to file appeals, and I'm sure over the next couple years there will be plenty. And this case really brings up a lot of questions surrounding mental health in minors and makes you wonder, was this crime committed by a young teenager suffering a psychotic break who couldn't tell right from wrong? Or do you think she was a calculated killer with no remorse for killing her mom? And this case is hard because you'd never want to dismiss someone's claims in regards to their mental health. Like if someone is hearing voices, that needs to be taken very seriously. But after seeing the videos where she tries to kill her stepdad and kills her mom, to see how calm she is and has time to call her friends to come over, and she has time to hide the security cameras, the fact that she was in that state of mind to do all that makes me feel that she was not in a psychotic break, that she was sound of mind and made a choice, and made the wrong choice at that. Well, gang, that's the case of Ashley Smylie. Thanks for showing up and listening, and we'll see you next week.
And just your weekly reminder to download our weekly episodes, follow us on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever streaming platform you listen to us on, and give us a follow on our social medias. You can find us at Luminol on the Wall. Can't wait till next week.